which is English Exams Explained. There's been a few questions coming up already, so I'll just get cracking on because we're a bit short of time. By the way, I'm calling in from Scotland. That's where I live. I don't know how many of you are local to Scotland, or if you're all further south. So as Jenny said, the point of doing the English test is to get extra points if you need them. And the main ones that people sit are the IELTS or Pearson's PTE. Now, they're sort of linked in different ways because IELTS has two modules, two types: general, which is roughly speaking everyday language, and academic, which is what nurses might need for their registration. Pearson's is also an academic exam. So academic IELTS is actually more similar to Pearson's PTE than it is to general IELTS. And there's, as we go through the day, as we go through this presentation, and as we go through my later one, I'm hoping that will become clear for you. The most important thing, I've been doing this job, only teaching guys like you for the last 6 years. I've known Wes and the team for a long time. So I've come across a lot of stories and a lot of different people. A lot of people, which exam is the easiest? Sorry, the bad news is there is no such thing as easy way to get English exam points. There are no silver bullets because the first thing is it's not English like English at school. It's a language test. It's a language test. So the good news for the people that work with their hands is actually it's just about understanding how to build the words. But to make sure you're doing the right job, it's really important to understand which is the best option for you. And a lot of people rush into it. So that's what I'm going to try and elaborate on to help save time and money, because you'll have seen on social media multiple resets. Well, that's pretty soul destroying and expensive. It's not a way that I would recommend that you go forward. So as Jenny said, you get 10 or 20 points depending on what your targets are, and it's really important, like anything. If you're running a marathon or a half marathon, if we look at the 10 points, it's like aiming to run a half marathon. 20 points full marathon. You've got to get into training. So to get the 10 points, which is the whole exercise, in an IELTS exam, you need to get a minimum band 7, and we'll be explaining that throughout the day. A minimum in all the boxes, which are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. To get 20 points from an IELTS exam, which is achievable with hard work, you need this minimum band 8. Pearson's is marked differently, and that will be explained later in the day as well. You need 65 plus, a score of 65 plus in what they call the communicative skills, but it's the same thing: listening, reading, speaking, and writing, or 79 plus in to get the 20 points. So both exams are geared towards, if you want more points, you have to score higher. It's as simple as that. So if we move, what I'd like to help you with is I'd like to go through in quite a lot of detail what the differences are, so that you can make an informed decision rather than just going on chit chat. What's the easiest? What's the most difficult? What do people like? The most common decision-making factor is that Pearson's is computer delivered. But IELTS is also now computer delivered. So that sort of negates that part of the process. Computer IELTS is available in London and Edinburgh and probably elsewhere in the country. So try not to get too hooked up on which you can write and which you can type. If you look at the exam environment, in an IELTS exam, it is silent. It's very quiet. In the computerized version, you'll be in soundproof booths. I've never actually sat at Pearson's, you might not be surprised to hear, but all the feedback I get is that it's extremely noisy because everybody's got headsets and microphones on and everybody is shouting. So it's like being in a language lab at school with 30 people all trying to be heard. So, you know, for people that don't like to find concentration for 3 hours a problem, or are shy, don't like to shout, that's a consideration. The length of the exam is more or less similar. The IELTS, you do listening, reading, writing all together, and then you do your speaking different. Pearson's, you do everything 3 hours with these headphones and microphones in this room, although you can take a 10-minute break. The results are available 13 days for a paper IELTS, 5 to 7 for a computer IELTS, and 5 working days for the Pearson's. So that's similar. Negative marking. A lot of people don't really do enough research, so they don't understand the impact of negative marking. But negative marking can be absolutely lower your marks without you even realizing. In IELTS, there is no negative marking, other than that if you don't write enough words, which is actually the same in Pearson's. However, in Pearson's, there is negative marking in some of their listening and reading sections, which means that if you get one wrong, you lose a mark. So rather than getting 0, you get -1. So I think that that's sometimes quite a big consideration that people maybe need to be really more aware of. So that's the difference between the exams. And if we move on to now to the differences between the actual papers, I'm hoping that will tie all the differences together. I am aware that I have to rush through this a little bit, but you know, you can email me for any advice or any questions that you have. I'm actually not that great at the moment. I've got a bit of a bug, so not COVID. You know, email me and I can get back to you next week. So the differences between the IELTS and the Pearson's paper. In listening, the CD is only played once in IELTS, so you obviously have to be paying attention. It's the same in Pearson's, but on Pearson's you have a time clock. It's all against the clock. You can see the clock much more. And Pearson's is, what a lot of people don't understand is, I mean, it's like for me, because I like to cook, it would be the difference getting some mince and making mince and tatties or spag bog. Okay, they're both doing the same skill. They're both using, sorry for vegetarians, they're both using the same thing. But IELTS, listening is what they call skills-based. So it's what you hear. What do you hear? That's where you get your answer. But in Pearson's, Pearson is designed as a listening and note-taking exam. Therefore, it's testing grammar, it's testing vocabulary, it's testing spelling, it's testing everything. Everything's getting thrown into that mix. So you need to be aware of what actually is going on. However, in the reading section, because Pearson is a listening and note-taking exam, then the reading is light. It's not so important. They don't really care about that. They want to make sure you can go to a lecture, take notes, and reproduce it. So the reading in the IELTS is sometimes an issue for people, mainly because of the time management. You have a lot of questions to answer in an hour, and you have to practice. Writing is very similar in both exams. So for everybody that doesn't like to write an essay, and I would be a very rich woman if I had a pound for everybody that hates to write English exam essays. They're exactly the same. They're marked in the same way. The questions are slightly trickier in academic because it's academic. But the main thing to consider when you're choosing your exam is that the task 1 in the Pearson's exam is a grammar test. It's a grammar test. It's really tricky. Compared to the task 1, writing is writing a letter, which is formulaic. It's formulaic. And then finally, speaking. Speaking in IELTS is a 15-minute conversation with a person. I mean, it's not how are you today and what did you have for your tea, but it's a conversation. It's marked on what you say. The Pearson speaking exam, to my mind, based on what I've learned, is strategically the most difficult because it's reproducing, could you go to a tutorial and give your ideas? Now, That means that it's not actually about how you're speaking. You get marked on oral fluency, which is do you hesitate, do you and ah, and pronunciation. So Pearson speaking is often tricky for people compared to IELTS speaking, which, honest to God, compared is a walk in the park. So these are the issues which I would urge you all to take really, really carefully before you choose your exam, because it's like everything in life. If you put all your time and effort into something which doesn't work out, you have to take one step forward and two steps back. So those are the differences between the exams, and just so the similarities between the exams are that they are both testing the same four things. Thank you. They're both testing listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So on the face of it, they are the same. They are they're similar. But you need to be careful because they're testing different things. The essay word count, so the amount you have to write, is similar. Moved on ahead then. The essay word count is 200 to 300 in Pearson's and minimum 250 in IELTS. So it's very similar. Don't be fooled by thinking one essay is easier than the other, because they're not. They're very similar. The cost is similar. Obviously, the cost is part of it. So there are a lot of similarities, but you need to look a little bit further down and get behind it. And then finally, once you've decided which exam is going to be the best one for you, all the IELTS centres are reopening mid-June. Pearson's are reopening mid-June too, so the exams are becoming more available. So now's the time to get cracking and get on. I'll be talking about this later, more in the afternoon. But the basic things that I think are really important for you are overall what we'd call literacy, punctuation and spelling. This is marked on both exams. Nowadays, we're all in a hurry. We're all really busy. We send text or emails. We don't punctuate. We don't use capital letters. That's fine for everyday life. But I can tell you what, if you don't start using it, this will really handicap you in your exams. The other important thing is finding time. I know you all have busy lives. I know you all have work, you have families, you have commitments. But going back to the marathon analogy, there is no way that you will get your points easily without applying to it. There's a range of exam resources available. There's a lot more available for IELTS than Pearson's, free. There's a lot more available free for IELTS. But some of these, because academic IELTS is similar to Pearson's, you can use these if you understand. So for instance, academic writing task 1 is actually exactly the same as Pearson speaking describe the image. And finally, what I'd like to say is please don't book your exam before you're ready. It's soul destroying. It's soul destroying. As Jenny said at the beginning of her thing, if you're an what I would call a native English speaker, you speak English and you go to sit an English exam, oh, this is easy, I speak English, and don't get what you want, it's so destroying, and it sort of sets you back. So my advice is take some time, think about which exam's best for you, look into it, and then plan your study time. I saw a quick question, something coming up on the chat about Cambridge exams. The Cambridge exam, CAE, first certificate would be the equivalent of 10 points. Cambridge Advanced would be 20 points. They're usable, but they're much heavier on grammar and vocabulary. So I think they're quite tricky unless you've already sat one before. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to me today. I hope I've helped point you in the right direction, which is really what it's all about. As I've said before, if you've got any questions, please email me or go to my website, English and maybe see you later. Thanks, Wes. Back to you.
Good on you, Marian. That was absolutely perfect. I hope you do feel better, and we'll see you later on for the English exam experience presentation.
Thank you, bye.
Thank you very much. Catch you soon.